Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had your heart drop out of your chest in the middle of a dinner party. Yeah, this one's for you. Let's jump right into it. There was a slice of cucumber stuck to the bottom of my shoe when it happened. That's what I remember most. Not the glittering drinks or the half-laughs from people I barely knew. Not even the weird blue lighting that made everyone's teeth look radioactive. Just that damn cucumber, stuck to my shoe like the universe's way of saying, "Hey buddy, things are about to get worse." She stood up right in the middle of the table. No warning, no subtle signal. 1 second she was sipping her drink, some lavender thing she made fun of when I ordered it, and the next she was delivering her little speech. "This is long overdue," she said, tapping a fork against her glass. "I'm sick of pretending everything's perfect, so I'll make this simple." She turned toward me, didn't even flinch. "Either you start doing what I say, or you can pack your things and leave tonight." A few of her friends let out an awkward laugh. One guy actually clapped. Me? I blinked. Once, twice. I thought it was some kind of twisted toast. A joke maybe. But no one said, "Just kidding." She didn't sit down. She didn't look embarrassed. She just stared at me like she was daring me to breathe the wrong way. People looked at me like I was the punchline. Like I was the guy who got dragged to a public execution and didn't even realize it. I felt heat crawling up the back of my neck. My hands were cold, though. You ever get that? When your whole body just doesn't know what to do with itself. I didn't say anything. I just looked down. At my lap. At my napkin. At that cucumber still stuck to my shoe. And I knew right then I was done. I didn't say it out loud. But something in me folded. Quietly. Like an apology no one hears. See what nobody knew. Not her smug coworkers, not even the bartender pretending not to watch. Was that 3 nights before, I already found the messages. The ones between her and some guy named C. I still don't know if that stood for Chris, Calvin, or coworker number 3. But I knew what I read. And now she was flipping the script. Painting me like I was the problem. Like I was the one who needed correcting. In front of everyone. On purpose. I should have walked out right then. But I didn't. I nodded like some kind of obedient ghost. And she smiled, God, that smile. Like she'd won something. She had no idea the kind of silence she'd just woken up inside me. But she would. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of a dozen people. I could still hear the clinking glasses, the hollow laughter. The way she raised her eyebrows when I didn't respond fast enough. That smug little look she gave me like she'd finally put me in my place. And you know what? She had. I didn't fight back. I didn't storm out. I didn't even say a word. That silence was my prison. I kept hearing her voice echo over and over. Either do what I say or pack your things. Like I was some underperforming employee she was giving a deadline to. By morning, she was up early, humming in the kitchen. Humming. Making herself coffee like she hadn't gutted me emotionally in front of a room full of near strangers. I just sat at the table while she poured oat milk into her mug and asked if I wanted toast like we were in some indie rom-com. I said nothing. She looked at me, slightly annoyed. "Are we going to talk about last night, or are you going to keep sulking like a child?" And there it was again. The flip. She was the one who threw the grenade, but somehow I was the one made to feel petty for bleeding. I tried to ask her about the messages. I didn't plan to, but it just spilled out. "Who's C?" I said, flatly, quietly, not accusing, just tired. She froze for half a second, blinked once, then smiled. "You're seriously going through my phone now?" she said. "Wow, how insecure can you be?" I didn't answer. She kept going. "You know what? That's exactly why I said what I said. You're weak, Curtis. You've been shrinking for months. I need someone who can step up. Not someone who pouts when I tease him in front of friends. Not someone who reads into things that don't exist." She leaned in close across the table. "If you don't want to lose me, Curtis, you need to man up. Stop inventing problems and start proving you're still the person I said yes to." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, But because the gaslighting was so casual, so rehearsed, it was like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. I got up and walked out of the kitchen. Later that day, while she was out at the gym, I opened our shared laptop. I never wanted to snoop. I hate it. It makes you feel like the villain even when you're trying to be the detective. But I needed truth. Something real. I didn't find C. I found two. One named Caden. One named Colt. And they both were sending her the kind of messages I used to send when we first started dating. Playful, dirty, full of energy. And she was replying with photos. Poses I'd never seen. Outfits I didn't even know she owned. One message stood out. From Colt. It read, "He still thinks you're just stressed from work? Poor guy." And she responded with a laughing emoji. My stomach sank so hard I thought I'd throw up. The worst part? I didn't even get mad. I just felt hollow. Like I'd been erased. Like I was some extra in my own marriage, while the real story was happening in private chats and hotel rooms I never knew existed. I closed the laptop, sat on the floor, and for the first time since all of this began, I cried. Not angry tears, not dramatic sobs, just quiet, shaking sadness that came from somewhere so deep I didn't even know I had that kind of sadness in me. That night I said nothing again. She came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, and I just nodded when she said she was tired. I watched her crawl into bed. She didn't touch me, didn't even look my way. She was already gone, and still I stayed. But something in me had started to shift. Not a plan, not revenge, just the very beginning of the end. The kind of end that comes not with a bang, but with a quiet decision to finally see the truth and stop pretending love should hurt like this. It was a Friday evening when I realized the woman I married didn't just stop loving me. She stopped seeing me altogether. And the irony? She thought she was hiding it, as if her carefully curated lies and half-hearted affection were holding up some convincing illusion. But illusions only work when the audience wants to believe in the magic. And I was done pretending the trick wasn't already falling apart. That night, Lynette asked if we could reset. That was the word she used. Reset. As if our marriage was an old Wi-Fi router needing a quick unplug and reboot. We sat at the kitchen table. Same spot as always, same lukewarm tea she always forgot to finish. And she looked me in the eye with this tired sort of pity. Not love, not regret, just management. Like I was a problem she wanted to handle efficiently. "I don't want to fight," she said, folding her hands like she was presenting a business proposal. "I know I've been distant, but that's because I need space sometimes, Curtis. You get so emotional over everything. I need strength from you, not tears and silent treatments." I swallowed my pride. Again, I didn't bring up the messages. I didn't ask why she kept going to yoga at 9 p.m. or why our bedroom felt colder than the spare room. I just nodded, because I was scared that speaking the truth out loud would make it real. And some twisted part of me still thought that if I just held on long enough, she might snap out of whatever spell she was under. But it wasn't a spell. It was a choice. Later that weekend, we went to a backyard barbecue. One of her coworkers was hosting it. A guy named Brennan. I didn't know much about him, except that he had a sleeve tattoo, ran ultramarathons, and once told Lynette in front of me that she had CEO energy. She laughed for 20 minutes at that comment. I didn't even get a glance. At the barbecue, things felt off the moment we walked in. People smiled at me the way you smile at someone who just walked in on a conversation about them. Couldn't prove it, but I felt it. That tension, that hesitation, that weird silence that follows you like a shadow. Lynette immediately drifted away into a cluster of people who clearly adored her. She was magnetic when she wanted to be. And me? I ended up near the grill, talking to some guy named Mason about lawnmowers and HOA bylaws. At one point, Mason looked across the yard and casually said, "So, you're really okay with all that?" I blinked. "With what?" He chuckled. "I mean, I get it. Power dynamics, open relationships, all that modern stuff. But doing it so loudly? That's bold, man." I didn't answer, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't understand. What did he mean, doing it loudly? What did he mean, open relationship? It wasn't long after that I saw it. Lynette and Brennan. off to the side of the yard. Not hidden, not even trying to be subtle. His hand on her back, guiding her in close while she whispered something into his ear. And then she laughed, tossed her hair, and leaned into his shoulder. My wife, leaning into another man like she belonged there. I felt this slow, buzzing pressure rise behind my eyes. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something, waiting for it to be a joke. But no one did. Everyone kept chatting like this was normal, like I was the one out of place. And then she looked over at me, just for a second, and she smiled. Not a smile of apology, not a smile of guilt, a victorious, knowing, fearless smile, as if she wanted me to see, as if she wanted to watch me not react. And I didn't. I just stood there, still, quiet, burning from the inside out but frozen in place. Because deep down I knew this was a performance, a final test. She was trying to see how much of myself I was willing to erase to keep her from walking away. And the worst part? I still wasn't ready to fail that test. We rode home in silence. She played music on her phone like it was just another night. When we pulled into the driveway, she kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her gym bag and said, "Heading out. Don't wait up." That night I didn't sleep in our bed. I sat on the floor of the guest room, staring at the wall, phone in hand, fingers hovering over the contact named Mom. I wanted to call her. I wanted someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the disrespect, that this wasn't normal. But I didn't call. I just sat there, letting my own silence bury me a little deeper. Because when someone breaks your heart in public and you still find ways to blame yourself, maybe the worst betrayal isn't theirs. Maybe it's yours. The first thing I noticed was that she didn't lock it. Her phone. It was just sitting there on the bathroom counter, screen still lit up, as if it had been mid-conversation and she'd been too distracted to remember to cover her tracks. I don't know what made her so careless that morning. Maybe it was overconfidence. Maybe she thought I was too broken to care anymore. Maybe she was right until she wasn't. She was in the shower, humming some pop song like she had no weight in the world. I stood there, frozen, looking at the glowing rectangle like it was radioactive. Her messages were open, not even minimized, like the universe had run out of subtlety and was ready to punch me in the face with the truth. I didn't want to look, but I did. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't even two. There were 5. Each conversation had its own flavor. One was playful. One was graphic. One was oddly emotional, filled with late-night confessions and pet names. One had pictures of her in outfits I'd never seen with lighting that screamed hotel room. One guy even asked, "Did he suspect anything at the party?" To which she replied, "Curtis? No. He's sweet, but hopelessly passive." Hopelessly passive. I can't explain what it feels like to be reduced to that, to be described like a forgotten sock. Still soft, still familiar, but not even worth throwing away properly. I scrolled through months of texts, fingers trembling. And then, I found the video. I didn't mean to play it. I don't even know how I tapped it. But suddenly, there it was. Her. On a bed I didn't recognize. Laughing, lips parted, calling someone baby. His voice off-screen, deep and smug. And her looking into the camera like she was proud of it. I dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the tile with a crack. The sound echoed off the walls just as she turned off the water. For a moment, time warped. Couldn't breathe. My whole body went rigid, like every nerve had short-circuited at once. She stepped out in a towel, saw me, and her face froze. "What are you doing?" she asked, the panic already setting in. I didn't answer. Couldn't. She glanced at her phone, then back at me. Her voice turned sharp. "Did you go through my stuff again? Seriously, Curtis? What the hell is wrong with you?" I picked up the phone and held it out. My hand was shaking so badly, I thought I might drop it again. "Who are they, Lynette?" I asked. "Do they know you're married? Do you even remember?" She didn't even try to deny it. Not this time. She wrapped her towel tighter and muttered, "I knew you'd ruin this. I should have changed the passcode weeks ago." "Ruin this," that's what she said. "Not ruin us. Not ruin our marriage." Just this. Like I'd popped the balloon too early at some twisted birthday party. I gave you everything, I said. I backed down every time. I swallowed every insult. I begged for scraps of affection while you handed out whole feasts to strangers. And you still think I'm the one who ruined this? She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. You were never enough for me, Curtis. And you knew it. That's why you never asked questions. Because deep down, you knew you weren't what I wanted. Her words were calm, cold, like someone reading off a report. I stayed, I whispered, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. Even after everything, even after the party, I stayed because I thought there was still something left worth saving. She scoffed. That's your problem. You cling. You don't live. And frankly, I'm done pretending. Then she walked past me, just like that, still dripping water, still wrapped in a towel, as if this was just another minor inconvenience in her day. I heard her slam the bedroom door, then the creak of drawers opening. She was getting dressed, going out again probably, meeting one of her C's. I stood in that bathroom for what felt like an hour. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror, hollow-eyed, skin pale. Not a man, just the outline of someone who used to be one. And for the first time, I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. God, it did. But because something snapped. Not in a loud, dramatic way. Not like a scream. More like the click of a final puzzle piece falling into place. And with it came a single, terrifying truth. This wasn't about saving a marriage anymore. This was about saving myself. I woke up the next morning before she did. Not because I slept well, I didn't sleep at all. But because I couldn't lay in that bed another minute pretending I was still a husband. That bed had turned cold, unfamiliar, distant. It was no longer ours. It was hers. A stage for betrayal. A trophy she didn't earn but claimed anyway. I made coffee the way I always did. Same ceramic mug. Same almond milk. But this time I didn't make hers. I stood in the kitchen, staring out the window, watching the wind push our neighbor's trash can down the street. It rattled across the asphalt like something lost and ignored. That's how I felt too. Like I'd been thrown out, left to roll until I finally landed on my side, empty and dented. When she came downstairs, she didn't even look surprised to see me standing there. She looked bored, like she was expecting another long speech, another emotional plea. Another attempt from me to patch up what she had already shredded. Instead, I slid a manila envelope across the counter. She narrowed her eyes. What's this? Everything, I said. Copies of the messages. Screenshots. Hotel receipts. Printouts from the shared cloud folder you forgot I had access to. I know about Colt, Caden, Carter, whoever else. And no, I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to throw things. I'm not even going to ask why. She didn't touch the envelope. She just stared at it like it was some alien object that didn't belong in her perfectly curated life. You went through my stuff again? She asked, voice sharpening. You left it out this time, I replied, calm. Too calm even for me. Honestly, you made it easy. Maybe part of you wanted to get caught. She laughed. Actually laughed. You really think you're the victim here, Curtis? You haven't touched me in months. You walk around like a ghost. You act like a doormat and then get mad when someone wipes their feet on you. Her words didn't cut anymore. Not like before. They landed flat, dull. I'd heard enough versions of them over the last year that they'd stopped feeling personal. They were just noise now. Static in a broken radio I no longer wanted to fix. I'm filing on Monday, I said. Uncontested. You'll get a copy. You can keep the apartment. I already talked to someone about temporary housing. Now she looked rattled. Wait, what? You said you wanted a man who could step up. Well, this is me stepping up. I'm walking away from someone who made me feel like I was lucky just to be tolerated. She blinked a few times. The mask cracked, just slightly. So that's it? You're just leaving? You left first, Lynette. I just finally caught up. She didn't speak for a while. I picked up my keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? She asked. To live, I said. Somewhere I don't have to wonder if I'm enough every time you get a text. And then I walked out. I wish I could tell you that I felt strong, that the air felt lighter, or that some victorious music played in my head as I closed the door behind me. But none of that happened. I sat in my car for nearly 30 minutes with my head against the steering wheel, shaking. Because leaving someone you love, even when they've destroyed you, isn't brave. It's brutal. And I wasn't feeling heroic. I felt like a broken man trying to learn how to breathe again. But I drove away. I ended up at a motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just 4 walls and a bed that didn't know her name. I didn't unpack. I didn't even take off my shoes. I sat on the edge of that bed, holding my phone, waiting for the inevitable message. Came an hour later. So this is how you handle things? Coward. And another. Don't think this makes you strong. It just proves how weak you always were. I didn't respond. Not once. And when the third message came, come back so we can talk like adults, I finally turned my phone off. Because some people don't want closure. They want control. And I was done being managed like a faulty appliance she could replace when it stopped working the way she liked. I slept that night. First time in weeks. And in the morning, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. Felt like peace. The silence didn't last. I'd been gone 3 days when the first real crack appeared in her composure. Until then, she'd kept it cool. Texting sharp little comments here and there, calling once with that fake corporate tone like I was late for a scheduled meeting. But I didn't answer. I didn't react. And that's when she started to panic. I was sitting on a folding chair in the temporary apartment I'd rented. Bare walls, cheap blinds, a mattress on the floor, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Calls, messages. Then the emails came. First to my personal inbox, then my work one. She even sent one to my freelance client trying to check in, as if I'd dropped a project. That's when I realized this wasn't about missing me. This was about losing control of me. I finally opened one of the texts. It read, "Curtis, you're acting like a child. You don't just disappear because you're hurt. You come home and fix it. No apology. No accountability. Just a command wrapped in feigned concern." Another message, minutes later. "If you don't talk to me, I swear I'll come find you. You're being dramatic." There it was. That word again, dramatic. The way she always described my feelings when I didn't conveniently agree with her version of events. But now she was spiraling because her spotlight was empty. Her loyal audience had left the building, and she didn't know how to perform without someone watching. That night, I had dinner with my brother Theo for the first time in months. He's the type who doesn't say much, but when he does, it's the kind of thing that sits in your gut for days. Over lukewarm Chinese takeout, I finally told him everything. Not just the infidelity, but the manipulation, the gaslighting, the way she slowly hollowed me out and handed back only pieces she thought I deserved. He listened quietly, sipping his beer. Then he leaned back and said, "Kurt, you don't look like someone who left a marriage. You look like someone who escaped a cage." I laughed, but I almost cried, because he was right. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped. I felt terrified, sure, but free. Raw, bruised, uncertain, but free. The next morning, the knock came. I knew it was her before I even looked through the peephole. She stood outside the door in that same gray coat she always wore when she wanted to appear serious. Her arms were crossed, her foot tapping. The moment I opened the door, she pushed past me without a word. "You think this is how grown men handle things?" she snapped, pacing the tiny space like she owned it. "You just ghost your wife? After everything I put into us?" I let her talk. "I don't know what story you're telling yourself," she continued, "but you're not the victim here. You gave up. You disappeared. You ran." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I did run. Straight out of a house that felt like a minefield. Away from a woman who used love as a bargaining chip." She froze. That caught her off guard. "I know about everything, Lynette. The messages. The men. The hotel charges you tried to disguise as business trips. I know." She blinked. Once. Twice. Then the deflection came as I knew it would. "People have needs, Curtis. You shut down a long time ago. What was I supposed to do? Sleep next to a stranger for the rest of my life? I stepped closer, not to intimidate, but to stop her from twisting it again. You could have left, I said. You could have told the truth. But instead, you stayed. You used me for stability while you fed your ego elsewhere. You humiliated me in public. And you tried to convince me that I was the problem every time you slipped away. She didn't say anything. So I added, I'm not asking for you to apologize. I don't even want it anymore. I'm asking you to go. She stood there for a long moment. I could see the flicker in her eyes, something between disbelief and fury. Lynette had never been told to leave before. She was always the one doing the walking away, the one who set the rules, the one who decided when a chapter ended. Not this time. You'll regret this, she said quietly. No, I replied, just as quiet. I've already regretted staying. And then she left. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. She just turned around and walked out like a storm that had lost its thunder. And I stood there, staring at the door, realizing something I never thought I'd feel again. Relief. Because for the first time since she gave me that ultimatum at the party, do what I say or pack your bags, I finally realized I'd chosen the right option. I packed. I left. And I wasn't looking back. It happened a week later. I had started to rebuild a rhythm. Barely a life yet, but something solid enough to stand on. The silence of the temporary apartment no longer felt suffocating. My breathing had evened out. The bags under my eyes had faded slightly. I began taking small walks in the morning, just to feel the cold air against my skin and remind myself that I still existed outside of her orbit. There were days when I didn't think about her until noon. That, for me, was a miracle. Then, just as I was preparing to step fully into the strange, quiet peace, she played her last card. It started with a voicemail. I didn't pick up because I recognized the number. It was her sister, Vanya. We were never close. Lynette always made sure to keep me just out of reach from her family, like I was on some kind of emotional probation, but I knew that if Vanya was calling me, something was brewing. The message was short and sharp. Curtis, you need to talk to Lynette. She's not doing well. Just call her, please. At first, I didn't react. I thought maybe it was a setup. Guilt bait. One more manipulation. But something gnawed at me, curiosity maybe, or the tiniest echo of who I used to be, the man who still wanted to believe she could feel something real. Against my better judgment, I called her. She answered immediately. No hello. Just silence and then a shaky, exhausted voice. I'm in the hospital, she said. I blinked. My heart dropped, even as my brain shouted, don't believe her. What happened? Panic attack, she whispered. I thought it was a heart attack. They ran tests. My chest still hurts. I sat down slowly. My stomach churned. As much as I hated what she'd done, I didn't want her hurt. I didn't want anyone hurt, not even her. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it, in a human way, not a married way. She took a deep breath. Curtis, I've been spiraling. I didn't realize how much damage I did. I thought I was in control of it all, but I wasn't. I made a mess of everything. Silence again. I want to fix it, she said finally. I want us to fix it. Please, come see me. We don't have to decide anything yet. Just talk. That's when I knew. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about regret. This was about losing. She had lost control, and now she was trying to reel me back in using the last tool she had, vulnerability. Real or exaggerated, I couldn't tell. But it didn't matter, because I had already seen too much. I drove to the hospital. Not because I wanted to be with her, but because I needed to see it with my own eyes, this version of her she never showed me before. I expected to find her hooked up to monitors or pale in a hospital gown. She was sitting on the bed, dressed in leggings and a hoodie, scrolling through her phone. Oh, she said when she saw me. You actually came. That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't rock bottom for her. This was a stage, a new scene, and I had been cast without a script. We sat in silence for a while. She eventually started talking about her childhood, about her insecurities, about how she always felt like she had to perform in relationships because she never felt chosen by anyone. It was the first time I heard any real introspection from her. And for a few brief moments, I believed it. But then, halfway through the conversation, she said it. I just think if you'd been stronger, more confident, I wouldn't have felt the need to look elsewhere. There it was, the poison in the well, still blaming me, still handing me the emotional bill for a meal I didn't order. I stood up. She looked up at me with those wide, glossy eyes. Where are you going? I'm leaving, I said. And this time, it's not temporary. Her expression turned cold. So you're just giving up on everything? No, I said. I'm refusing to carry your damage anymore. I walked to the door. She didn't call after me, didn't cry, didn't shout. Just sat there with that same look of disbelief she had when I first handed her the envelope. I drove home. My actual home now, the one where she didn't exist, and opened the window. The cold air poured in, and I let it hit me full force. That night, I didn't check my phone once, because I knew she would try again. Another text, another guilt trip, another dangling hook. But I had already climbed out of the water, and I wasn't going to drown for her ever again. I didn't hear from her again after that. Maybe she realized the performance had closed and the curtain wasn't coming back up. Or maybe she just moved on to someone else, someone new to mold and wear down and test. Either way, it no longer mattered. Her silence was no longer something I feared, it was something I welcomed. The following weeks weren't magical. There was no instant healing, no cinematic breakthrough where everything suddenly made sense. I didn't find a new love, or take a dramatic trip across the country to find myself. But I did something better. I started doing the smallest, most human things and doing them for me. I bought fresh sheets, not because I needed them, but because I wanted a bed that didn't smell like old regrets. I cooked dinner without trying to impress anyone. I even overcooked the chicken one night and laughed instead of beating myself up. I called my brother more. I met up with an old friend I hadn't seen in 3 years. We didn't talk about her. We just talked. About dumb movies. About life. I started taking long walks without headphones. Just listening to the wind. The sound of my feet on the pavement. I even stood outside during a light rain one evening. Just stood there, arms crossed, letting it soak through my hoodie like some quiet baptism. And slowly I felt it. Peace. Not the loud, triumphant kind you post on social media, but the soft kind. The kind that lets you sit in a room with nothing but your thoughts and not want to escape. One afternoon, I got a message from a coworker I barely knew. She said, "You seem different lately, calmer, lighter, happier even." It was the smallest compliment, but it hit me harder than anything Lynette ever said. Because it was real, and it was earned. I'm not telling this story because I think I'm special. I'm telling it because for a long time, I thought people like me didn't get to walk away. That if you were quiet, sensitive, unsure, you had to stay. You had to keep trying, no matter how many times they crushed your heart and handed you a smile like a reward for not yelling. But the truth is, you can leave. You can pack your things. You can choose yourself, even if it's late, even if it's hard, even if you've convinced yourself you're not the kind of person who leaves. Because staying where love used to live doesn't make you loyal. It makes you lost. And I'm done being lost. So here I am now, starting over, still healing, but walking forward every single day with a little more clarity, a little more dignity, and, for the first time in years, a little more hope. Thanks for watching. This has been Reddit Confessions. If you've ever been in a relationship where someone made you feel invisible, I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share the moment you realized you deserved better. Let's talk about it. And if you're still in that silence, still waiting for the strength to choose yourself, I hope this was the sign you needed. You're not weak for walking away. You're brave for even thinking about it.